Well, I'm Gary Waterman, a former UK police constable. Welcome to part 9 of my evidential research document in relation to the Satanic Temple United Kingdom Company. This now irrefutably links this financial system, which is criminal, to a satanic cult and the targeting of humanity, and in particular, the targeting of children, the most innocent of all. We were looking at Office Team 2 Group Limited Company in the last video. It's an important company because it connects to Jeffrey Epstein and Max Clifford via the research very quickly. And on their incorporation document, it makes links then to stationery companies that are featured throughout the fraud on the documents. This includes Waterloo and OYES, many of which are forged documents, it appears, by our governments, remember, that control these company registration systems. On the left, within that company, you can see that Alan Jones connects on the right to Royal Insurance Holdings Limited. So we now have a link back to royalty. And on the incorporation document for that royal company is Slaughter and May. I suggest that that name is very symbolic of this satanic cult and what their plans were against humanity. On the right there, you can see the same director, if I can get the screen to go back. The same director is linked to Royal and Sun Alliance Insurance Global Limited. Now remember, in the event of a apocalyptic event, or shall we say a depopulation event that they control and a reset, then it enables them to take all of the money unclaimed from any insurance claims, any pensions, etc., and defraud the masses through that as well. Everything goes back to this international government fraud. All of the world's problems relate to this, everybody. I cannot emphasize this enough. This is absolutely critical to save humanity, and in fact probably the planet, that everyone gets behind this. But I'm being suppressed, so you need to be networking this everywhere. Any of you that this gets through to. So the Royal Sun Alliance Insurance Global Limited Company. It's very interesting because on the address here you see Tenio Financial Advisory Limited. If you get a minute, go and look at that company on Wikipedia. It links into the Clinton scandal, tying in with the Podestas, which then links in again to the evidence surrounding Madeleine McCann and international child trafficking. Tenio also connects to Coca-Cola, McDonald's, and it connects to David Cameron and the Green Seal scandal, which I've already looked into, and that is part of this international criminal fraudulent system they have in place. And you can see this company dissolved in June 2022, a few days before I approached Anthony Roberts, who was the acting chairman of Exborn Manor Freehold Limited, to look at the bank documents, and he resigned. July was a very key month in relation to everything. At the bottom there, you can see that it's an old company. Started in 1912, supposedly had a name of London and Lancashire Insurance Company Limited. Remember, Lancashire is very important in relation to all of this, as previously explained, because it appears from the evidence that is now growing to suggest that the real heirs to the throne may have been murdered during a meeting at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, or around that time, with Walt Disney in the late 1950s and early 1960s. Well, that is in Lancashire. Okay, Blackpool Pleasure Beach. And it was actually the motivation and the influence for Walt Disney for the Disney resorts in America. So you can see it changed it started in 1912, changed its name in 1984, 3 years after the Guidestones were installed in America. Go and look at the Georgia Guidestones if you want to. It then changed its name again in 1991, which is the same year, around the same time as the Gulf War, and when they switched to an electronic registry system for Companies House, which is all very relevant, I think, in relation to the Gulf War. And on the incorporation document, it has London and Lancashire something insurance. Can't read that. Well, that's not been registered. Okay, you can see it's not been registered. So that, again, is a criminal entity, a satanic, fraudulent criminal entity company. Remember, this all goes back now to a satanic cult. which means it's incredibly dangerous for humanity. But they will, I suspect, try and save themselves, potentially. Well, if they do, it's not going to happen, I'm afraid. There's information I've got that any tunnel systems that they're going to try and save themselves in will be flooded. On the right, you can see that Thomas Hayhoe links to the Taxation Disciplinary Board, which of course references tax, and tax is all part of this to defraud the public. And on the right, you can see Royal Ocean Racing Club, because yacht clubs are very important in this for these satanic individuals, because they transfer the laundered money into yachts, because it's a way for them to hide the criminally obtained money. Now, the director on the left, John Ketley, connects to Yaxley companies. Yaxley. We have to consider that this relates to the Yaxus or Tommy Robinson family. So Yaxley SD Limited, we were just looking at, dissolved in January 2024 after I was exposing it, and I've been exposing and talking about Tommy Robinson's link to this international fraud. Now, that was created in 1989, and it recently, in January 2024, dissolved. That's not going to be a coincidence. So let's have a look at Tommy Robinson, whose previous name, if you're not aware, was Stephen Christopher Yaxley Lennon, born in 1982, 2 years after the Georgia Guidestones were installed. Better known as Tommy Robinson, is a British anti-Islam campaigner, and one of the UK's most prominent far-right activists. Since the 28th of October 2024, my birthday, he has been serving an 18-month prison sentence for contempt of court. I suspect he's not even in prison. I suspect that's part of the deception, because you'll see as we go through, he's actually linking in to the Freemasons and to the international government fraud, and he's been refusing to assist in exposing this. So under his name, I mean, first of all, why would you use an alias name? Okay, many of the people involved in this are not using real names, or they're using alias names. You'd only do that really if you were trying to hide previous history. But Mr. Yaxley, on his research here, you can see far-right politics for many years. He was a member of the British National Party, BNP, a British fascist political party from 2004 to 2005. For a short time in 2012, he was joint vice chairman of the British Freedom Party, and he co-founded the English Defence League in 2009 and led it until October 2013. So let's look at the English Defence League, or one of their companies. And you can see here, EDL, English Defence League Limited, started in 2011, dissolved in April 2019. Many companies are dissolving in 2019. I suspect that's because of the plan of the vaccines to lead to an international collaborative deception to remove many people using directed energy, and to allow the vaccines to hide the real threat to humanity through that directed energy. But its previous names, you can see here, it had the English and Jewish Defence League EDL Limited. Now this links Tommy Robinson to Israel, okay, via the evidence. And I've already seen a video of Tommy claiming to be a Zionist. Now I suspect this is an international collaborative deception to make it appear as though Jews are behind what we're seeing, but it actually being a satanic cult. Because what that would do is bring about a falsified apocalyptic event to fit the Satan narrative. Okay, now remember, this is all tied into the Church of England as well. And many Christians are saying, Gary, it has to happen. There needs to be a nuclear war, and Jesus will return, and the entire world will be obliterated, and that will be with the return of Jesus. You have all been deceived, everybody, by a satanic cult. It's becoming very clear. Okay? I believe the return is through initially the conscience of man, able to acquire a higher level of consciousness, moral conscience, in a rational state of mind, to lead to the return, not through the destruction of the planet and all life on the earth, which is what it seems and appears that these people may be leading to. There is a suggestion they're going to be potentially trying to save themselves in tunnel systems or deep underground bases, military bases. I have information, and I believe that if that is the case, they will be flooded and their demise will be brought about. That is not what I want to happen. I believe everybody can be saved through disclosure of the truth, true repentance as to what they've been part of, and a commitment to change. But of course, the people will demand consequences. So let's look at Stephen Yaxley Lennon on the right. There's only one entry on Companies House, and he's linked to Maximum Trading Limited on the left, a company that dissolved in 2013. And on the incorporation document, D&D Law Agency Services Limited, a key company in the fraud. Going into the record, you can see that one of the people, Daniel Dwyer, I suspect it's a false name, that links to the fraud. It's another one of the names they use. So, for example, Sundar Mansakani that we've mentioned, and Mavis June Latter, I suspect they're not even real people, and they're using that to hide the fraud as duplications of records, etc. Now, that name immediately links to Lancashire again, bearing in mind what we've just been talking about, Lancashire, how important it is, and it ties in with Walt Disney and international child trafficking and the real heirs to the throne having potentially been murdered. Now, that Lancashire Festival of Hope with Franklin dissolved in February 2024. You can see in the address, we've got a link to a Baptist church. So I've already mentioned the connection to the church as well. So it dissolved in February 2024 as I was exposing the fraud. That Daniel character is also connected to the African Foundation for Resources and Industry. I'm just showing some of them. But also in there you see the D&D Law Agency Services, which I'd already exposed. And here you can see it was incorporated in 1974, 3 years after the World Economic Forum, and then dissolved in July 2024. Again, as I'm making the connection to the blood taken from tortured children in relation to all of this. And going back to the beginning of this document where it all started, just to confirm again, you can see the Satanic Temple United Kingdom also dissolved in July 2024 as I'm making the connections to the blood taken from children in all of this. And going back within the document, correspondence with key individuals that I was sent to contact, trying to convince me not to focus on adrenochrome, the blood taken from tortured children. You can see here some of the correspondence. It's futile focusing on adrenochrome, Gary. Trust me, it's old news. I'm told you're losing audience because of it. It's generating money to harm people by evicting, trying to convince me to focus on other things. Making reference to Sabine McNeil that ties to the Hampstead child abuse inquiries. Notice the dates, July 2024, the 23rd, this conversation's going on. I'm trying to protect you from harm. Drop the adrenochrome. I say drop the adrenochrome, save myself and let the children die. No one can save the world. Trying to convince me not to continue with producing the evidence of the adrenochrome. Those messages were the same day, okay, that D&D Law Agency dissolved, a key company in relation to the fraud. And in fact, although I can't see it now, when I was researching the World Trade Center disaster, I was thinking about what it is that the fire and brimstone means in relation to the Bible, and that it can't be about nuclear war or an asteroid or anything like that, because otherwise I wouldn't have this evidence. There'd be no point in me having this evidence. And as I was thinking about fire and brimstone and what that meant, I turned the very next company, and there was the word brimstone on the company, and it was D&D Law Agency, which is a company, but a key company, as I've just showed you, but I can't find the brimstone wording on it at the moment. So that to me was a key sign that I needed to go, and that actually it was about this evidence. It wasn't about, I believe, the end of the world, and that everybody has actually been deceived by a satanic group. We're going to come to this a bit later. So D&D Law Agency is the incorporation document, and you can see here a change of address within the company on a key date, 6th of September 2001, a few days before the World Trade Center disaster. It changed its name from 96 to 99 Temple Chambers, Temple Avenue, which had linked into the fraud previously, just before the World Trade Center disaster. Within D&D Law Agency, you have Betty June Doyle. I've mentioned that because there's duplicate records for her, and that appears to be a name with a view with many companies there. Daniel John Dwyer on the right links to Watercress Way Management Company in Kent. Within Watercress Way, Martin Crick on the left, who was appointed in April 2022, as I'm making inquiries with an Exbourne Manor Freehold Limited, is linked to Aylsham Village Phase 2B. I'm just showing some examples of these. Now, another director within that company links to Aylsham Village Phase 1B. Now, why is this important? Well, it's important because the murder of the real heirs to the throne linked to a kidnapping and somebody being taken to Aylsham Village in Kent. Now, Aylsham is close to Canterbury, and the Archbishop of Canterbury is heavily implicated in relation to all of this. The international fraud and the Church of England are very important in relation to this. The Cray twins are also incredibly important in relation to Kent, with a lot of history tying to Kent. And my dad's adoptive family, from the research of MK Ultra, the control of humanity through pharmaceuticals, subliminal messages, mind control, actually getting them to do things they wouldn't normally do, such as kill themselves or kill others, ties in to my dad's adoptive family, who are associated with the Cray twins. And on the incorporation document for that company, Aylsham Village, we have Vistra. And Vistra, if you search Vistra Limited, had a previous name of Jordan's and Sons and Jordan's Limited. And it was started in 1965, the year before the Church of Satan in 1966. And notice Vistra's symbol here of what appears to be a pyramid. And there are connections to the Egyptian pharaoh links in all of this, and ISIS, which I mentioned in one of the other videos, which then of course ties in with the World Trade Center disaster, and I suspect the staged creation of the ISIS group to blame for these terrorist events, some of them, when in fact it is this satanic cult that have infiltrated all governments. And ISIS is also an Egyptian goddess. On the right, Daniel John Dyer also links to Cambridge Court, Ferndown. Ferndown, okay, is a place in Dorset, very close, or not far at all, away from Exbourne Manor. And here's Cambridge Court, Ferndown on the left. And you can see it's got an address of Malvern Road in Bournemouth. That address features in the fraud. If you go into that company, Cambridge Court, you hit Asset Property Management. And you go into Asset Property Management, you hit Spencer Road, Bournemouth, Freehold Limited. And when you go into Spencer Road, Bournemouth, Freehold Limited of the same address, 218 Malvern Road, you hit Initiative Property Management Limited of an address of Branksome Park House, Branksome Business Park, Poole, United Kingdom. And you can see the dates are key. So, and you would have noticed that on some of those other screenshots, the changes in the names. So you can see here, resigned February 2024 from this company, the person that linked to it. So why is Initiative Property Management Limited so important? It's because of this. So back in 2023, I believe it was, various articles came out in the Daily Echo, which is the Bournemouth's local media or news company. And this was on the 21st of September, I believe it was 2023. And it specifically mentions Initiative Property Management, the same company we've just looked at. And it's sparking economic crime investigation. Now, bearing in mind, I'd already been making the reports to Dorset Police, okay, and the Serious Fraud Office and the Independent Office for Police Conduct throughout from the end of 2022 through 2023. And here we have an article with them investigating this company, Initiative Property Management, that we've just linked to from the research of Tommy Robinson. And you can see here on the left, Initiative Property Management based in Branksome. Remember, I've mentioned we have the Branksome Masonic Hall tying into Caroline Kellaway, who my wife's father had told me plays squash with the people from that Masonic Hall. So Dorset Police has said it has received a number of reports relating to the company which operates in the BCP, Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole area, which is in Dorset, and parts of the south. Detective Inspector Andrew Kennard of the Economic Crime Unit said it is the early stages of our investigation and preliminary inquiries are underway. Now, this was an attempt to alter, conceal and destroy evidence, I'm almost certain, in relation to my reports, because they knew it may lead to bigger, much bigger satanic plans against humanity and the crime that has been going on for so long. Now, earlier in this document, we mentioned Connor Burns, the MP, who has subsequently now stepped down. Here he is talking about Initiative Property Management, okay, in Parliament. Now, this was deliberately fed to me, so it was to make me believe that something's being done about the crime, when in fact it's a cover-up, and we're going to come to that in a minute. And here you can see Connor Burns, MP for Bournemouth West, brought the issue of the business up in the House of Commons and suggested work may be needed to close a regulatory gap to help manage similar businesses. In considering future business, may I draw the leader of the House attention to the collapse of a company in my constituency by the name of Initiative Property Management, who manage a large number of residential blocks in my constituency and more widely. Now, this was to try and limit the damage, to limit the exposure of what was really going on, which is international fraud and child trafficking. Now, remember, that was the 21st of September. I don't know if you saw it on there. Now we have another article that came out on the 27th of October 2023, I believe it was. Now, that's over a month after the initial report. And it says, officers from Dorset were seen searching the offices for Initiative Property Management based in Branksome last week. Now, that would never happen normally. Remember, I was in the police for 18 years. So they publicised an investigation on the company with Dorset Police and then didn't search it until a month later. You will always do a search, and you certainly would not publicise an investigation and not search it for a month. So this was clearly an opportunity for them to alter, conceal, destroy evidence, and limit the exposure of the real problem, which is the international government fraud. And remember, Dorset Police, the Economic Crime Unit, has provided 2 emails confirming they were inadvertently confirming they were allowing forged bank documents to be produced by the banks and used in circulation. I then found all of the connections not long after, confirming that the police are involved and that you have an international criminal system in place with all UK police forces, the intelligence agency, serious fraud office, government officials, all involved to defraud the public through the taxation system, and the banks are facilitating it. Now, they brought in, I don't know if I've got the screenshot of it, but they then brought in and had another article of somebody claiming to be a victim of this fraud by Initiative Property Management. And it was this person, Jody Martinez Dodge. But the research of Jody linked him to JP Morgan. And JP Morgan, if you've been following my evidence, you will know that they are linked to the Flemings, who initiated my removal from Exmoor Manor Freehold Limited, and therefore this person claiming to be a victim appears to have been positioned and staged by those behind and involved in the larger fraud. Again, to try and limit the exposure and make it seem as though it's a more isolated incident, when in fact you're talking trillions of pounds worth of fraud, and more concerningly, the torture of babies and children. Now, we're talking about Tommy Robinson. Just to show you an email here confirming that I had correspondence with those that work with him. So it's Urban Scoop. Hi Gary, we've been sent out your details by a couple of supporters, and Tommy has asked me to reach out to you. If you could kindly let me have your phone number, I will pass it to Tommy. This was before I realised and had the evidence as to how huge this was. Now, this is in April 2024. I then put my mobile number and had a response on the 29th of April saying, no problem at all. I know the feeling. I've passed your number to Tommy. But he never contacted me. Never contacted me. I then had correspondence with Mayor Toosey. I know I've spelled that wrong. Sorry, Mayor. And we exchanged numbers. And I found that Mayor Toosey was also connected to the fraud via a company called Iris, which links to IBM, which then ties into the international fraud and linking into the child trafficking and the World Trade Center disaster. And I was honest with him and told him I had this connection. He asked if he was in danger. I confirm you're not in danger as far as I'm aware. I pray you are linked to an Iris company through research which links to IBM and the fraud. Tommy is also linked to the fraud through his previous name to a company called D&D Law Agency that is closely associated to the London Law Agency, a very key illegal entity company in this. I suspect we are all in danger over this, even those that have been knowingly or unknowingly involved. The truth is, in all of this, will save everyone and has the potential to change the world for the benefit of people from the nations, all nations, beliefs, ethnicities and cultures. This has incentivized the division across the world for a long time. And then he put, oh, Iris, I used to work for them as an account manager before I got into politics. That's terrifying. I then just sent a message saying it can be stopped. Please can you have a chat with Tommy and let me know if we can talk collectively. I have been told by Tommy's team that he had my number, but I have had no contact from him. So this is someone who works with Tommy Robinson a lot. I then mentioned some other things here, and he heard nothing from Tommy, and I've never heard since. Now, what this does is connect Tommy to the international fraud, but also, therefore, the Freemasons who are within the police, and yet we're being led to believe he is being targeted by the police and arrested. Now, why would you not contact a former police officer saying they have irrefutable evidence of decades-long international government fraud which implicates the police, when that is everything you're talking about? Now, I personally believe he was positioned as part of the satanic escalation and risk to the division between faith groups. Okay, and that's clearly what is going on here, tying in with the Albert Pike document and letter written to Mazzini in 1871, which was apparently removed from the British Museum Library the same year I was born. So within Maxim, the Maxim Limited Company that he was connected to, you can see you've got Daniel John Dwyer and Daniel James Dwyer in the People records. And in fact, we'll come to this because this is incredibly interesting moving forward, and you'll see the evidence that I've shown in relation to the Soylent Green movie and why. Thanks very much. Come back.